What you running away from, boy?
Nothing.
Must be a scary pretty nothing, that. You hungry?
Yeah.
A preacher came to our church in a little small town in Arkansas and had an affair with my mother, and it broke up my mother and father's marriage and pretty much destroyed my life as a child. I mean, I was only 8 years old, but we lived in such a small community and people talked, and my friends that used to hang out with me, it was like their parents didn't want them to be my friend anymore because of this scandal that was happening. And this same preacher who had the affair with my mother later became my stepdad. My father came into the room and told me to get up and get dressed.
Steve, come, let's go.
I thought maybe a tornado was coming or maybe we were going somewhere, an emergency had happened, but I knew something was wrong. At about 2 o'clock that morning, we drove over to where this preacher lived that had had the affair with my mother. And I remember that night when the lightning struck, it had to be right over the top of us because there was no seconds between the lightning and the thunder. And it was enormously loud. But my dad come running back to the truck and his hand was hurt. He was holding his hand and cradling his hand. And it was amazing. A lot of people can call it a stroke of luck if they want to, but it was definitely something that kept that preacher from being killed, because lightning struck so close to my dad that night that he was blinded temporarily, and he caught something out of his peripheral vision, and he thought that it was the preacher standing in the yard with him. So he lunged and punched as hard as he could, and he hit a cow in the face. There was a cow that had got out of the fence that night and was standing in the yard when that lightning struck, and that's the only thing that kept that preacher from being murdered.
I swear he wanted to burn it down, Zach.
I believe you. Someone taking your woman, you can get pretty angry. But if it's a pastor taking your woman, boy, it's enough to kill a man.
But it wasn't my mom leaving him for the pastor, though.
No?
It was me telling him about those dirty magazines he keeps under his bed.
Your daddy's a lucky man.
Lucky?
Mm-hmm. God saved him.
God punished him for all the fighting he did with my mom.
But he saved him last night. You ask me, that cow was God.
The cow?
Uh-huh. If your daddy hadn't broken his hand, he'd have burnt the place down, see? God saved him from the worst thing a man can do. Yeah.
The first time that I ever seen pornography, the pornography belonged to him. He was my stepdad, and I would have to sit there in church and watch this man stand in the pulpit and preach hellfire and brimstone, and then know that underneath his mattress was probably 20 or 30 porn magazines. He had enough porn magazines that I could steal 2 or 3 and he would never even notice that they were gone.
God forgive that man.
I hate God.
And I started talking to him and I told him, I said, I hate my mom and I hate my dad and I hate the preacher. There's a preacher who's going to be my stepdad, and I just dumped everything. I spilled my guts to this bum, telling him, trying to get some kind of comfort, But what was amazing is that this old bum, who would probably not be welcome in any church in the condition that he was in, started telling me not to hate my mom and not to hate my dad, and telling me that I shouldn't hate the preacher, and he told me not to hate God and not to be so angry. I liked that bum, so every weekend for almost 6 months, every Saturday morning, and went to visit my friend who lived at the railroad tracks. My brother and I had started a newspaper, and we were printing propaganda stories, pro-First Amendment, freedom of speech, and that's what we based all of our newspaper on. And the amazing part about it was that in the town that we lived in, the local government was trying to pass ordinances that would close down some strip clubs, and we had a constitutional type of newspaper that fought for freedom of speech. So these strip club owners came to us and started asking us to fight on their behalf, and we did. We started printing stories that said the same First Amendment that protects the church is the same First Amendment that protects these strip clubs. And we actually won this battle against city council. All of these clubs started wanting to give us money to advertise. And now all of a sudden I've got people in the porn industry that's wanting to give me money, so it was like the best of both worlds. It was pornography and money mixed together. We turned our publishing company into a porn publishing company, and we published a full-color glossy magazine. We had an internet porn website. We owned 1-900 numbers, dial-a-porn lines, and we even had an adult toy store that we sold merchandise over the internet. And so at this point in our life, we're thinking, hey, everything is great. We can fulfill any fetish or any fantasy or any desire through our jobs.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Mike, over here. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. The real reason why we've invited you all here tonight, me and my brother, Mike, have just received this contract for $3 million. 30,000 magazines all over the country, from the East Coast to the West Coast. All right. Yeah. Well, here's to us, and here's to our inspiration.
I had a marriage. I had children. I was a father. And I considered myself a good father. That's the amazing part about it is I was very active with their schools. I was very active with PTA. I lived a double life. No one knew. They thought that I was just a newspaper publisher. No one had a clue that I was a XXX rated hardcore pornographer. And I was living a double life for my kids. So my marriage was just doomed from the very beginning, and probably was from the very beginning of the marriage. And we divorced, and it was just tragic for my children. You know, even though I considered myself this great dad, here I am letting my children go through a broken home the same as I went through a broken home, and I felt pretty guilty about that.
Oh. She's pretty. How old is she?
She's 9.
Daddy's little protege.
Okay, all right. Give it. Give me. That's enough.
She'll be a big star when she grows up.
That's enough.
And Daddy's little protege.
You see this? She'll never, ever, ever be involved in this. Do you understand me?
Oh, baby.
Oh, come on. Come on.
My 9-year-old daughter called me on the telephone one day and said, "Dad, will you come to my school tomorrow And I said, sure, I would love to. Tell me why. And she said, because tomorrow's career day, and I want you to tell my class what you do for a living. And my daughter didn't have a clue what I did for a living. But just my little girl asking me, would I come on career day, and me knowing inside that I was destroying women in the porn industry, that my pictures, that I was exploiting them as a person, and then having a daughter asking me would I come to class really bothered me.
No. Alex, no means no. Okay. Go and play or something. Okay, bye-bye.
I had made a full circle all the way back. I mean, you know, at 9 years of age, I wanted to end my life. And what was amazing is that now I was out of the abuse of my family. I was out of the abuse of this preacher who had led my mom into an affair. And I'm grown. And what was amazing is that I had come full circle, that I had went 360 degrees. Instead of 180, going exactly the opposite direction, I had went in the same direction, except more destructive. And I had lost it. I felt like I was losing my mind.
Oh, man.
Good afternoon, Steve.
Will you flick through the channels, please? I can't watch this trash.
I'm watching this. Come on, Steve.
Now, pornography. Well, let me tell you, friends. Pornography destroys children.
It ruins families. It ruins preachers, churches. It even ruins communities. And you might think that you are immune to pornography.
Yeah, I mean, it was like he pointed right into my living room and he said, pornography. And I thought, well, who is this person and what's he going to talk about? And he said that pornography destroys children, and pornography destroys homes and families and pastors and churches and even communities. And as he said all of this in one sentence, I realized that he had just described my whole life. If that's not irony, that I was producing the very thing that had destroyed me. I felt like I needed to throw up. I felt cold, and I was sweating, and I felt like I was going to die. What I didn't know was that the guy was a Christian evangelist named James Robison. I would have never watched a Christian show. And we became so just interested, I guess, or drawn would be the better word. We became so drawn to that television show. We watched it for 3 days because it was a 3-day series on pornography. And every day that I watched it, I felt sicker and sicker about my own life.
So you might ask, what is the big deal about pornography? It ruins families. It even ruins communities. It destroys children. It will destroy you too. It will destroy you too.
I was having some kind of moral attack. And I finally got on my hands and knees in my bedroom, and I said one thing. I said, Jesus, is this you? And when I said those words, all of the pain, all of the sickness left. And then when I started thinking in my mind that maybe there is a God and maybe Jesus is alive, I felt myself becoming angry. I started getting mad because I started thinking, where were you my whole life? How could you leave me in a home like that? How could you leave me under those circumstances? And at the same point that I'm asking this question of where were you my whole life, I remembered the hobo. And I started thinking, maybe that was my guardian angel. Because even though he was a nasty old looking bum, he told me more about God than I'd ever learned in a church. So I surrendered my life and I asked the Lord to come into my heart. I started going through this struggle. I didn't know what to do. I mean, here I am. I'm wanting to get saved. I'm believing that God and Jesus is real for the first time in my life. And at the same time, I don't know how to get out of the porn industry because my living depends on selling pornography.
But it's $3 million, Steve.
I know. I know. Oh no, man. I don't want people here right now. Please.
I'm not here.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Dad?
Hey. What is this?
Dad, you look a mess.
Well, thank you, sweetie pie. What is this?
She's going to stay with you for a little while.
A little while? How long is a little while?
A couple of days, a week, I don't know.
You can't just spring this on me.
Look, she's your daughter too, Steve.
Oh, it couldn't have come at a worse time, okay?
Look, with you, it's always the worst time. I've got a life too, okay?
Oh, yeah? Where are you going?
Dad, where's Uncle Mike?
I think he's upstairs, baby.
Bye, Mom.
Look, here's my number in case there's an emergency.
No, you can't do this to me. You should have called me, okay?
You never call, Steve. You should do something about yourself. You look like hell.
No, hang on. Look, I'm going through a really hard time at the moment, okay? Please.
Alex wants to go to church with Marisa on Sunday. I'll be back in a week.
Oh, Gaby. Oh, please. Gaby, come back. Come back, Gaby, please, man. Oh, all right.
Look what I found.
Hey, Dad.
Hey.
Can I go to Sunday school with Marissa?
Oh, of course you can, sweetie. Whatever. $3 million, Mike. Anyone would think we are completely insane not to do that.
Maybe we are. Look at us.
You remember when you phoned me from Arkansas and you said, let's raise our kids together, huh? Let's have a real family with real holidays and real Christmases, huh? Let's give our kids the family that we never had.
Yeah, I remember that.
What happened?
We forgot.
Oh. Do you really think God is trying to tell us something? Listen to me. What am I talking about? What am I talking about?
Hi, Dad. It's holy water. I got it from Sunday school.
And here I am in the worst struggle of my life.
I don't know.
And my 9-year-old girl comes home from church that Sunday afternoon, and she's carrying a little white bottle with a blue cross on it, like almost like a doctor symbol or something. And she walks up to me and she says, "Here, Dad, you might need this." And she hands it to me, and it's holy water. And I mean, that just freaks me out even worse, because I'm sitting here going through this struggle. I mean, God has came into my life, and my 9-year-old daughter, out of the wild blue yonder, comes up with this statement and says, "Here, Dad, you might need holy water." We finally got to the point to where we said, I don't care about the money. I don't care about the porn. I don't care about the sports cars. I don't care about any of this. I just want to have my heart back. I want to have a spirit. I want to have a life. I want to try to be a godly dad. I want to be just like you, Lord. My life is so complete now. You know, I hear people all the time say that their childhood is the greatest part of their life. Well, let me tell you something. I've spent the greatest part of my life trying to get over my childhood. And there's a lot of people watching this that has too. And I'm just telling them how I found freedom from my past. And it was through the Lord.